The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and old money, the kind of gala where every glass of champagne cost more than most people's rent. Nathan Cole hadn't been invited. He'd been hired, a last-minute favor for a caterer short on staff, to help move equipment through the service corridor before the event began. He wasn't supposed to be standing in the middle of the main hall at all, but a jammed service door had forced him to cut through the crowd, tray in hand, moving quickly and quietly the way people do when they know they don't belong somewhere. He didn't get far before a hand closed around his wrist. Elena Marchetti, CEO of one of the city's largest investment firms, had spotted something the instant he crossed her line of sight, a small, worn pendant hanging from a chain just visible beneath the collar of his shirt. She'd stopped mid-conversation, crossed half the ballroom in her heels without excusing herself, and now stood directly in front of him, her voice cutting through the low hum of orchestra music and polite conversation. She asked him, sharp and unsteady all at once, how he had it. Nathan didn't understand the question at first. Security moved in on either side of him, mistaking the moment for a threat rather than what it actually was, a woman staring at a piece of jewelry like she'd seen a ghost. The room, quick to sense drama, had already begun to turn and watch, phones lifting halfway out of pockets before people caught themselves. The pendant had belonged to Nathan's late wife, passed down from her grandmother, a small oval locket with a hairline scratch across the glass that he'd never bothered to have fixed because it felt disrespectful to erase, even accidentally, something she'd carried for years. He explained this quickly, quietly, aware of every eye in the room, but Elena wasn't hearing him. She reached forward again, fingers trembling now instead of accusing, and asked to see it properly. Nathan unclasped it and handed it to her, more out of confusion than compliance. Elena turned it over in her palm, and there, engraved into the back in handwriting too small for most people to notice unless they already knew it was there, were two initials and a date. She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd crossed the room, her voice lost its edge entirely. She told him, quietly enough that only the people closest could hear, that the locket had belonged to her late husband, that it had been missing since the night of his accident 3 years earlier, along with a handful of other personal items that had never been recovered from the wreckage. She'd assumed it was gone for good, one more small loss buried under a much larger one. Nathan felt something shift in his chest as the pieces started to align in a way that made his skin go cold. His wife's grandmother, he explained slowly, had told him the locket had been a gift decades earlier from a young man she'd once known before choosing a different life, a name Nathan had never had reason to think twice about, until now. When Elena said her husband's family name aloud, Nathan recognized it immediately. The same name stitched quietly into his late wife's family history, a connection nobody currently living had ever fully understood. Security, still gripping his arms, seemed unsure now whether they were restraining a thief or standing in the middle of something neither of them had the authority to interrupt. Elena told them plainly to let him go, her tone no longer accusing but urgent, almost pleading, asking Nathan if he had any other pieces, any letters, anything at all connecting his wife's family to the man she'd loved and lost. Nathan didn't have answers for her that night, not fully. But he had a name, a date, and now a stranger standing in the middle of a ballroom who seemed to be holding the other half of a story he never knew he was part of. The crowd around them, moments earlier eager for scandal, now watched something far quieter unfold, two people from entirely different worlds discovering, almost by accident, that their lives had been connected long before either of them had a reason to know it. Elena asked him, gently this time, if he would be willing to sit down with her, not as a caterer's assistant caught somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, but as someone who might be able to help her understand a piece of her husband's life she'd never known existed. Nathan, still holding the tray he hadn't managed to set down through the entire exchange, said yes.